If you enjoy strange and unusual stories from the past, hit like and subscribe, so that every night we can journey through history in a more relaxing, sleep-friendly way. The air filled with stench and disease. Ancient Rome was once praised as the heart of the world, a symbol of civilization and power. But if you were truly there, you'd quickly realize that it was nothing like the beautiful cities shown in movies. There were no clean streets, no pleasant scents of baked bread or fresh wine. Instead, the entire city was wrapped in a heavy mix of human odor, animal waste, and the rot of garbage decomposing under the scorching Mediterranean sun. The Romans had no modern sanitation system. Most houses lacked drains, and there were no garbage collectors. Everything, bathwater, wash water, and even human and animal waste, was simply thrown out onto the street. The narrow alleys became small rivers of filth, buzzing with flies and crawling with pests. Walking along the cobblestone roads, you would see piles of trash, animal carcasses baking in the heat, and puddles of foul water collecting around your feet. Every step would be a struggle, as the stench rose up and made your head spin. In the morning, when you open your window instead of sunlight and a fresh breeze, a wave of odour greets you. A sickening blend of human waste, sweat, sour wine, and decay. Just one deep breath would make your throat burn, your eyes water, and your stomach twist. The people of Rome were used to it. For them, this was simply part of daily life. But for someone from the modern world, that air would feel like a slow form of torture. Rome may have been the centre of the ancient world, the birthplace of emperors, philosophers, and monumental architecture. Yet beneath all that glory lay a filthy, suffocating reality. A city where just surviving a single afternoon would drain your strength, overwhelmed by the stench and the sickness that floated in every breath. 2. Food. Dirty, mouldy, and potentially deadly food in ancient Rome was rarely fresh. It might sound surprising, but in a city of millions, without refrigeration, proper storage, or any idea of food hygiene, most meals were already spoiled long before they reached the table. For the poor, eating was a daily struggle to survive. Their bread was made from the cheapest flour, often mixed with sand or sawdust to make it heavier, saving on grain. The bread was hard, dry, and could easily break your teeth. Sometimes it was mouldy, crawling with insects or maggots. But people ate it anyway, because hunger didn't leave them much choice. They made thin porridge from barley or oats, added a pinch of salt if they were lucky, and sometimes begged for leftovers from the wealthy. That was considered a decent dinner for a common Roman. And drinking water. Forget about clean water. Rome had aqueducts, yes, but ordinary citizens didn't have filtered water at home. Most of them drank straight from the Tiber River, the same river where people bathed, washed clothes, dumped garbage, and even threw dead animals. The smell was overwhelming. But when you're thirsty, you drink. Drinking from the Tiber was basically inviting bacteria into your body. Dysentery, malaria, and intestinal diseases were a normal part of life. What about the nobles? They lived better, of course, but not necessarily safer. Their banquets could last all night, with dozens of exotic dishes, peacock meat, pheasant, even flamingo tongues or monkey brains. Yet, the most beloved part of every Roman meal was garum, a fermented fish sauce made by letting fish rot under the sun for weeks. The smell! Imagine fish sauce, but spoiled beyond belief. Still, the Romans loved it. They poured garum over everything, meats, vegetables, even desserts. But there was a darker side to Roman luxury. Their food often spoiled quickly, teeming with mould and bacteria. And worse, they cooked in lead pots and stored wine in lead containers, believing the metal added a pleasant sweetness to the taste. They didn't realize that lead was slowly poisoning them, destroying their nervous systems, weakening their minds, and perhaps contributing to the fall of their empire. In short, in ancient Rome, eating wasn't pleasure. It was a gamble for survival. You might fill your stomach, but you could never be sure you'd live to see the next day. Just one bite of sand-filled bread, a gulp of Tiber water, or a taste of rotten garum, and your stomach would rebel violently. If you were lucky, it'd just be food poisoning. If not, that meal might be your last supper. Medicine. The kind that could kill you. Faster getting sick in ancient Rome? My condolences, because your chances of survival were almost zero. Roman medicine sounded impressive. They had doctors, hospitals, and even medical books filled with theories, but don't be fooled by appearances. Most Roman doctors had little real understanding of how the human body worked. Their entire system was based on the false belief that illness came from an imbalance between the body's four humours: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. If you were sick, they thought one of these fluids was too much. And their solution? Get it out. That's why the most common treatment was bloodletting. Whether you had a fever, a headache, or even a broken arm, the doctor would cut open a vein to purify your body. They used bronze knives, sharp reeds, or metal tubes, draining you until you turned pale, dizzy, and weak, sometimes to the point of death. If you somehow survived, there was another charming remedy waiting for you: animal dung poultices. Yes, you heard that right. Some Roman healers believed that donkey, mouse, or goat feces could draw out toxins. They crushed it up, mixed it with olive oil or wine, and smeared it directly onto your wound. The stench was unbearable, and the infection that followed was almost guaranteed. Many people died not from their illness, but from blood poisoning caused by their treatment. Roman medicines were equally terrifying. Doctors prescribed lead, mercury, arsenic, and a variety of poisonous herbs, all mixed into tonics or pills. Taking them often caused vomiting, seizures, or worse. But the Romans believed that pain was a sign the cure was working, and surgery? That was pure horror. There were no anesthetics, no sterilization. Surgeons used bronze knives, iron clamps, and burning irons to cauterize wounds. Patients would bite down on a piece of wood, screaming as the blade cut through flesh, hoping they'd pass out before the pain killed them. If you did survive the operation, infection would likely finish the job within days. Even the rich and powerful weren't safe. Many Roman emperors, generals, and philosophers died because of bad medicine, overdosed on cleansing tonics, bled until collapse, or poisoned by their own cures. In short, in ancient Rome, when you fell ill, you didn't look for a doctor, you prayed. Because survival didn't depend on medical skill, it depended on luck. So next time you complain about modern doctors, imagine being treated with knives. 4. Entertainment. Blood and screams. If you think entertainment in ancient Rome meant music performances or elegant theatre, you would soon realize you're mistaken. The greatest pleasure for Romans was not poetry or drama, but blood, violence, and the suffering of others. The first thing you notice when entering the Colosseum is tens of thousands of people gathered, cheering, clapping, and shouting. The atmosphere is lively but tense. The crowd eagerly anticipates what is about to unfold, ready to cheer on life or death battles. On the arena floor, you witness humans fighting to the death or being torn apart by wild animals. Gladiators trained their entire lives to survive only a few minutes. One wrong strike, one misstep against a lion or tiger, and it's over. Blood splashes across the sand, screams echo through the stands. The crowd cheers wildly, jumps with excitement, and applauds as if watching a sporting event. But for a modern observer, the scene is horrifying beyond imagination. If you show fear, flinch, or protest, the crowd will look at you strangely. You will be seen as crazy or abnormal, because in Roman eyes this was normal entertainment, a way to relieve stress and celebrate strength and power. Sometimes, the arena wasn't just humans fighting humans. Wild beasts like lions, tigers, or leopards were released to hunt humans as prey. You might see a gladiator running, slipping, and instantly becoming the animal's target. The smell of blood, the roar of the lions, and the clang of weapons created chaos, terrifying yet thrilling for the spectators. Whether rich or poor, standing high or low in the stands, the feeling of witnessing such scenes is a mix of horror and adrenaline that keeps your eyes glued to the action. Roman entertainment was the struggle for survival intertwined with the crowd's joy, where blood and screams were the music of a powerful but ruthless civilization. If you lived there, you would quickly learn that to adapt to this society, you had to become accustomed to seeing blood and hearing screams, or be seen as an outsider, abnormal, and even shunned. In Rome, entertainment was not about relaxation. It was a lesson in survival, where you learn to watch violence without flinching, accept the horrifying, and understand that for the Romans, blood and screams were a source of joy. 5. Houses. Beautiful outside, miserable inside. On the surface, Roman houses looked magnificent. Marble columns, frescoed walls, and elegant courtyards gave an impression of wealth and sophistication. But for most citizens, daily life was far from luxurious. The majority of people lived in insubstantial apartments, often several stories high, made from wood and mud. These structures were cramped, poorly ventilated, and extremely vulnerable to fire. A single careless spark could ignite an entire building. In densely packed neighbourhoods, one candle falling, one cooking fire left unattended, could set the whole block ablaze, consuming homes and possessions in minutes. There was no electricity, no plumbing, and no private toilets. Water had to be carried from public fountains or the river, and bathing facilities were shared among many families. Floors were uneven, stairs rickety, and the smell of smoke and waste often filled the air. At night, shadows loomed large in narrow corridors, and the darkness amplified both fear and discomfort. Even those who appeared wealthy from the outside were not always safe. Fires, poor construction, and overcrowding were constant threats. A lavish facade could hide drafty rooms, leaky roofs, and structural weaknesses that endangered everyone inside. Living in a Roman home meant struggling to stay safe, dry, and somewhat comfortable, even as the city around you thrived with grandeur. Outside, Rome glittered with power and wealth. Inside, ordinary citizens endured a daily life of risk, discomfort, and fragility, always one accident away from disaster. 6. The silent killer. Lead ancient Rome was famous for its aqueducts and advanced plumbing, but there was a deadly secret hidden in their water supply: lead. The Romans used lead pipes to transport drinking water throughout the city, believing it was strong, durable, and modern. They had no idea that the very material meant to bring life-sustaining water was slowly poisoning them. It didn't stop there. Romans also used lead cookware and containers for boiling wine and storing food. Lead added a slightly sweet taste, which they considered a desirable flavour. Wealthy households especially relied on these vessels, thinking they were a mark of refinement and sophistication. But with every sip of wine, every bite of food prepared in lead, the metal silently entered their bodies. The effects of chronic lead exposure were devastating. Many people suffered from neurological problems, becoming forgetful, confused, or mentally unstable. Some experienced paralysis, muscle weakness, or severe abdominal pain. Others simply died young, with no one understanding the real cause of their illness. It's believed that widespread lead poisoning may have affected generations, weakening the population, and even contributing to the decline of Roman society. In Rome, something as ordinary as drinking water or enjoying a fine meal could become lethal over time. Lead, invisible and tasteless, acted as a silent killer, slowly eroding the body, mind, and life of anyone who trusted the conveniences of civilization. The city that dazzled the world with its grandeur and engineering also harboured a hidden danger. Amidst the marble columns and grand villas, lead quietly took its toll, claiming lives without anyone realizing it. 7. The ending, a harsh reality. The Roman civilization was truly magnificent. Its achievements, its architecture, its culture, all of it inspires awe even today. But if you were actually living there, the reality would be far less glamorous. Chances are, you wouldn't survive more than a single day. Instead of bathing in warm, clean water, you would wade into dirty, contaminated rivers, sharing the same water that others used for washing, cooking, and disposing of waste. The stench would cling to your skin, and every breath would carry invisible threats of disease. Instead of feasting at lavish banquets with garlands and wine, you would chew bitter, sandy bread, or swallow thin, bland porridge, the humble, often contaminated fare of the common people. Meals would be a gamble, sometimes edible, sometimes dangerous. And instead of watching thrilling gladiator films or imagining the excitement from a distance, you would be in the arena itself, surrounded by the screams, the blood, and the chaos. The roar of wild beasts, the clash of metal, the excited shouts of thousands of spectators, all of it would be real, immediate, and terrifying. Rome may have dazzled the world with its grandeur and brilliance, but beneath that beauty was a city of harsh survival. Fires, disease, poor food, lead poisoning, and the constant threat of violence meant that living there was not a dream. It was a daily struggle. If you imagine the crackling of fires and the wind whistling through the columns of ancient temples, you can almost feel the weight of this world pressing down, a place both majestic and merciless. In the end, the truth is stark. Rome's greatness is undeniable. But for a single person thrown into that life, it was almost impossible to endure for more than a day.